Welcome to 10.5, the official podcast of the OPP Association. I am Scott Mills.
And I'm Emily Brown, and we are the Strategic Communications Coordinators for the OPP Association, and your host for the 10.5 podcast, the official podcast of the OPP Association. For some background about the OPP Association, the OPPA is the sole bargaining agent for the close to 10,000 members of the Ontario Provincial Police in Canada. Our members are our focus and our strength, and we aim to provide important information to members and the public about matters that affect policing in the province of Ontario.
Well, thanks, Emily. And today's guest is someone who helps us out regularly in our jobs here at OPPA Comms. We collaborate a lot with her and her amazing photographs. Jayne Veen is the official OPP Photographer, and she joins us today to talk about her work. So welcome, Jayne.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Jayne. We really appreciate your time. And just to kick things off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I live in the metropolis of Tiny, just outside of Midland, Ontario. And I have two wonderfully supportive children and a wonderful husband who support all the crazy antics of my travel across the province to do my job. And in my spare time, I love to crochet, and physical fitness is something that I've really been trying to ramp up on over the last few months. And I like to make sure that I'm getting outdoors as much as possible. I'm a very big outdoor adventurist, so that's a little bit about me.
Jayne, I follow your life antics on your personal Facebook there, and it always inspires me. So you do so much work out there. Thank you for all that you do. I know you're quite community minded, and your pictures are amazing. So we've got some questions for you, if that's okay with you.
Of course.
What led you to be interested in being an official OPP photographer?
To be quite honest, when I joined the OPP, I had no idea that there even was a photographer. It makes sense based on what we do in our organization. But I spent 14 years in finance before becoming a member of the OPP, and I started in civilian data entry, then moved to CPIC, and then this job had come up, and I was like, oh, I used to do photography on the side while I did finance. I should throw my name in the hat for that. And of course, my husband was very supportive and was like, if you don't do this, I'm submitting your application for you. It would have been bad, but he would have tried. And so I did a little bit of digging to see what kinds of photos they would actually be getting me to take. And what the job started out as isn't really the grand scope of what it is now. But I was super eager to be able to start to capture some of the legacy in action as the OPP creates it.
Now, Jayne, we've obviously established that you work for the OPP. Can you share a little bit more about where you work as a home base and what that's like?
So my home base is in general headquarters in Orillia, but I cover the entire province's needs for photographic images. So I could be anywhere from Thunder Bay down to Windsor to Ottawa. It all depends on where we're hosting events or where the needs are for the organization. And it's provided me with a really unique opportunity to see a lot of the smaller communities in Ontario, and to also see how policing can vary from small communities to larger city centers. So it's been really interesting to utilize my skills in a variety of different areas. Interesting.
So I think when people might think of a photographer for a police service, that it's for forensic identification and stuff like that. Just to be clear, Jayne is kind of the corporate photographer for the OPP, and she's not a forensic investigator. So can you just share with us, Jayne, what your kind of day-to-day routine would be like in that role? I know you're extremely busy and very, very dedicated to what you do and do such a great job at it.
Sometimes I do attend scenes, but it's not to take the forensic photos. It's to take photos of our members performing their daily duties of the job. And so sometimes that does take me to things that aren't so pretty. Sometimes it involves going to schools and going out with school resource officers to get community engagement photos. It could be that I'm photographing award ceremonies or graduations. It could be that we need to get photos for training procedures. So I've been out with some of our specialized units getting photos during their training. And sometimes I get to participate, which is pretty entertaining. And other times it's just as an innocent bystander there taking photos of what the action is that's going on in front of me. So I've had the opportunity to do the Canine Calendar for the last 3 years, and that is a wonderful fundraiser for our OPP Youth Foundation. And that's taken me to various parts of our province as well. And always being mindful that our canine unit are tactical dogs that are not the let's go rub their bellies and give them lots of treats, but they're just magnificent animals that are so well trained. So my day-to-day could really vary anywhere from doing canine photos, going out on boats, going up in the helicopter. It sounds really glamorous. It's a lot of work and can be very physically demanding and exhausting, but I love my job and I feel truly honored to be able to capture our legacy in action.
Now, I would imagine after everything that you mentioned, you must go through just thousands and thousands of photographs. Do you have some favorites that have stood out over the years that you reflect back on and really love?
Funny enough, one of my favorite photos is one that I took just before I got this job, and I was in CPIC, which is the Canadian Police Information Center, doing data entry. And there was a magnificent sunset. And I noticed that our helicopter was down on the helipad, and I yelled out to my team, I'm like, guys, I'll be right back. I have to get this photo. And so I ran outside and captured the photo, and it ended up on the front of our annual report that year. And so that one always stands out for me. There have been lots of photos that I've taken that I've been really proud of, and other photos that I just, for whatever reason, have stuck in my memory. But one that definitely hit my heartstrings a lot, and I believe it's one that you guys might have actually featured in the OPPA magazine, is one of our commissioner, and it was at one of the funerals, and behind him you see the vast number of people who were there to support at the funeral from our OPP family. And it just really hit home that we stand behind our commissioner and that we stand together as an organization, but more importantly as a family, that when one of us hurts, we all hurt. When one of us falls, we all fall. And we're all there to support each other and to be that hand to hold each other up when times are hard, to give each other a high five when times are great, and everything in between. And that photo to me just really stands out to show how enormous our organization is and the enormous support that goes along with it.
Yeah, I'm getting goosebumps as you're talking about that. And I've seen you at some of these events, and you're just always so professional, and you kind of stay out of the way, and you get the most awesome shots. I'm envious. So thanks for all that, and you're right. We have featured your photos on our Beyond the Badge magazine more than once, I believe. So we very much appreciate you sharing your good work with us, Jayne. And you recently, I'm really anxious to hear about this. You recently went up to James Bay area for a fat bike race. And we were wondering if you could tell us about that trip.
It was actually, we went up to Pikangikum, and ever since I worked in civilian data entry, I became fascinated with the community. The name came up a lot, and it's obviously not an easy one to spell unless you know how to spell it. So Pikangikum just always stood out in my mind, and I did a lot of research about the community and was flabbergasted that such a remote community existed in Ontario with so little resources. And part of the trip of why the fat bike riders rode from Red Lake all the way up to Pikangikum on their fat bikes over the ice roads, the very rocky, treacherous terrain, and the hills that they were going up on. And they were doing it to raise money to get fat bikes for the community of Pikangikum so that the youth had an opportunity to get out and do something physical. The youth there are being trained to work as a bike repair shop. So they've created a bike shop at the back of the school where they're actually bringing in technicians to train the students so that they can have a source of viable income. And it's really grown their sense of community within the youth and allowed them a safe space that they can go to where if things are going wrong, if things are bad at home, they have somewhere safe to go. And listening to the kids talk about what the changes and the impact has been for the youth in the community since they started this bike ride program has been incredible. I had the opportunity to speak with Adam Belanger about his experience when he first tried to start the bike program up there. And it was at a time where things were very volatile for police to be in there. And he broke through those barriers and showed them that it wasn't about policing. It wasn't about changing anything. It was about providing opportunities for the youth to better engage them and to give them areas where they didn't think they could grow, but they were. And it was phenomenal to hear the backstory to how all of this started to take place. And they amazingly raised over $53,000 for the program. And the fundraisers will continue to happen through various community organizations. And that trip is something that I will hold with me for my whole life. Seeing how the community functions, seeing the lack of resources they have, but yet the joy that they still try and bring to each other. We got to go out into the bush with one of their teachers and learn about the different medicines that the Indigenous people use up there and what they're trying to bring the traditional teachings back for their youngsters is just incredible. And I highly recommend if anyone has an opportunity to do a Northern Duration, take the chance and go with your eyes wide open, go with your heart wide open. There's so much there that the community has to offer that if you can go in there with a warm embrace, you will be forever changed too.
Now, this next question kind of ties into what I asked you before. I was asking about your favorite individual photos, but was there a photo shoot that you found particularly interesting in your work past, Jayne?
Oh, that's such a tough one because I've had amazing opportunities. And I tried thinking about this when I got the questions you were going to ask me, and I tried to figure out how one of them could possibly be my favorite, but there really is no favorite. I know one of the most memorable ones was my very first trip up to Thunder Bay with the organization, and I was doing a canine calendar photo shoot, and I got to see all these various parts of Thunder Bay that I otherwise never would have gone to. And it was just so uplifting to have that be at the start of my career. And the people that I was with in the canine unit were fantastic. And being able to showcase a lot of the places that are in Thunder Bay that people may not necessarily have gone to or know about, like the old Thunder Run ski jumping that got shut down after they had built it for the Olympics. And being in places like that and just seeing the history was incredible. And I'm excited because I'm actually heading back to Thunder Bay next week. And I'm hoping to go and revisit some of those places for different purposes, but it'll be another great trip up to our Great White North. And then on the opposite end of that, going down to Essex, I didn't know how much that county had to offer. And I went out with their media relations officer, who was fantastic. And I got to see all of the different areas that we cover for policing outside of what Windsor Police does. And hearing about some of the collaborations, hearing about the community engagement, being able to see how far apart some of our detachments are, even though they're considered all part of the same catchment, it was very eye-opening. And it was just an altogether incredible experience as well. I did a great photo shoot in the syndicate for Haldimand, Brant, Norfolk, and Oxford. And it was actually there that I went out with one of the officers who spoke about how he got on the job at 37 and completely changed his life over and wouldn't change a single thing because he felt like policing was the best career that he could possibly have gotten into. And he really inspired me. And I'm actually working on my own application to go uniform, hopefully in the future.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Wow, exciting.
That is very exciting. Like it's, I got this one question that's not really on our plan here, but you're talking about going a long way away, and I'm pretty sure you go on a plane. What's that like?
Well, the only downside to our OPP planes is that they don't have a bathroom on them, so it takes planning. But it's actually really interesting. It's something that I wouldn't have thought of prior to this job, of why would we actually need a plane for the OPP. But when I have seen how much our commissioner has to travel from one end of the province to the other, and sometimes it's at the drop of a hat and he has no notice, being able to have our planes as a resource is incredible. And I know that we also do some offender transport with them. And so I haven't had the luxury, I guess, of going when there's been offenders on the plane, but it's always been a very wonderful experience to see our vast province from the skies. And because it's a smaller plane, you're not necessarily as high as you would be in a commercial flight. So you get to see a lot more, and being able to see how spread apart our communities are, and knowing that our officers have to cover all of that territory is a really eye-opening experience. It really allows you a different perspective to see just how far apart some of our communities are in comparison to when you think of the GTA, where you don't even know where the border lines are half the time and you're already into another city. Mm-hmm. So it's really nice to be able to see our landscape from that perspective. It's nice to not have to go through all the luggage claims and traveling that way. It's a little bit spoiled, I guess, but there's also lots of times where I'm driving for hours at a time to get to a bridge dedication or an event ceremony. So sometimes I lose a lot of productivity time just in travel. So being able to take our plane and going out to the different locations and having that time back in my calendar is very helpful.
I can see where that would, the whole road thing and travel definitely takes up some time. And you've really painted a picture of kind of a provincial job that you're doing there. And it'd be really great to be able to see all your photos on a regular basis. And I know some get published, some don't. Where can anybody listening to the podcast here see your photos on a regular basis and kind of share your journey?
Really, it's following our social media platforms. We've got our Instagram, X, Facebook, and just watching out for different social media posts about the events that are taking place. A lot of those photos will end up being my photos. I've also shared the photos with people like yourself. And if we're partnering up with different organizations like ABLE or our Owl Gala, which is the Ontario Women in Law Enforcement, they end up posting some of the photos that I take at our special events. And then a lot of our literature has photos that I've taken in it, or photos that predecessors have taken in it, that those photos are from our stock imagery that we keep on hand for our social media representatives to access and utilize for the posts. But a lot of it comes down to the posts for our special events. That's where most people would recognize the photos from. And our Canaan calendars.
Now, speaking about special events, two of the biggest ones that happen during the year would be the Ontario Police Memorial Ceremony of Remembrance and the Canadian Police and Peace Officers Memorial in Ottawa. Can you tell us a little bit about what it's like to cover such large events?
I definitely get my steps in those days. I'm happy I have an Apple Watch that can track it, because if you don't track it, it didn't happen, right? But I typically am running around with a couple of cameras around my neck, one for long range photos and one for close range photos, so that I'm not missing any moments. And I run up and down the path as our officers are marching. But I always try and make sure I take a few moments just to absorb the energy of the event, because when you have that many officers who are there from almost every police organization across our province, and then for the National Memorial from across Canada, it's really an unbelievable experience to look around and see all the shoulder flashes, see people that are from every ethnicity, see people from every walk of life. I know that there's officers whose previous careers have been everything from being other first responding personnel like fire or ambulance. There are some that were lawyers. There's some that were actors. You never know what someone's background is, but on those days when everyone comes together, it's about remembering the ultimate sacrifice that our officers have made to protect the communities that we live in. And you never know how you're going to respond to being in those situations. But I can say that from being a part of several of our national and provincial memorials now, the feeling is always the same, where you're humbled, where you just feel that family sense that together we're all brothers and sisters in blue, and we're all there for a common goal, that we're all there because we want to help protect our communities at any cost. And you always hope that that cost at the end of the day isn't something that's going to be tragic, but unfortunately sometimes it is. And we honor those members who've paid that ultimate sacrifice to make sure that they know that they will never be forgotten. And that's something that when I struggle with a run, or if I don't want to do any more push-ups, I think of those who've given the ultimate sacrifice. I think of some of the words that I exchanged with people like Greg Pershala, and I use those as motivation to keep going, to push through the hard moments, because at the end of the day, those hard moments are never going to be as hard as theirs. And we push and we feel and we work together to make sure that we take into account our mental health supports and we take care of each other. And those memorials to me are all about taking care of each other, to remember our fallen and to be there to continue their legacy of excellence.
Well, that's an amazing description of those events. Like you, I'm very passionate about them. And just for everybody's information, the Ontario Police Memorial Ceremony of Remembrance happens on the first Sunday of May every year down on Queen's Park Crescent in downtown Toronto. Everybody's welcome there. It doesn't matter if you're a sworn member, a retired member, a civilian member, a member of the public, member of the media. Everybody can come and just celebrate and feel that energy down there, and honor our fallen officers. And the Canadian Police and Peace Officers Memorial, that's a national event up in Ottawa on Parliament Hill. That happens on the last Sunday of September every year. So there's also a run and a ride to remember that goes along with that. And if you're listening and you want to get involved with something very meaningful, and they're both great family events as well, please check them out. And Jayne, we're coming to the end here of the questions we said we'd ask you. So we have a recurring segment or theme on the 10-5 podcast about your 3 wishes for change. And that could be improving the world, improving your job, anything you like. We're aiming to plant a few seeds for change in our episodes to make the world a better place. Are you willing to share with us your 3 wishes?
Does it have to only be 3? I've got a few.
You want a raise, right?
Everybody wants a raise. Honestly, as far as my job is concerned, I wish that we had a photographer in every region so that every region could get the love. But that doesn't necessarily mean that we don't have photographers in every region. I'm just the only official one. But if someone takes an awesome shot and they want to share it with me, I would love the opportunity to be able to feature other people's viewpoints as well. And I know that we've got some great photographers in our organization that do it out of the side of their desk, or maybe they just do it as a personal hobby. Never be afraid to send me your photos, because it could be in our next annual report, or it could be shared with the OPPA and go in there Beyond the Badge magazine. You never know where those photos might end up. But if you've got a passion for it and an eye for it and you want to send me your photos, I would love to see them. For my personal life, obviously, my goal is to become a uniform member. So I'm wishful that comes into fruition in the very near future. And then as far as changing the world, it's just, I would love to see people do more random acts of kindness, not because they want recognition for it, not because they're trying to get a thanks, but it really does fill your own bucket when you fill someone else's. And I know that sounds so cheesy and dorky, but it's something that's really important to me that I've tried to instill in my kids. And it's something that it can take no money at all. It might just be a smile or a compliment, but doing something nice for somebody just because feels really great.
Well, thanks, Jayne. And that doesn't sound cheesy at all to me. Not at all. Like Scott said, as we're wrapping things up, do you have any last words for us?
Just go out, be safe, take care of each other, and always make sure that if you find that you or someone you know is suffering from anything with mental health, that we have wonderful programs in place with the OPP. You're never alone, and it's not a scary thing to get help. It takes one step, and it could really lead you into a better place.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Jayne, for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you for the opportunity.
You have been listening to Jayne Vander Veen. Jayne is a civilian employee of the OPP, the OPP's official photographer, and a valued member of the OPP Association. If you would like to reach Jayne, or if you have any ideas for future episodes, you can email us here at communications@oppa.ca. We thank you for listening, and until next time, be safe.